We're here at the residence of the High Commissioner to Barbados in the UK, His Excellency Guy Hewitt, and we're taking this opportunity to run through his last 4 years of his time at the mission here. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tyrone, and welcome.
So how has it been for you?
Satisfying. I look back on the 4 years feeling that I have achieved a lot of what I would have liked to have done while I was here.
Okay. Let's talk about Guy Hewitt before he came to the UK. Tell us something about your background.
My career has been eclectic. I have worked at the University of the West Indies. I've worked with the CARICOM agencies. I've worked with charities. I'm a minister of religion and Anglican priest specifically. So it's been a varied skill set, which I think I was able to draw on, or I would say all of what I had done prior to this, and prepared me to execute the task that I was unexpectedly asked to do on behalf of the government of Barbados.
You already answered my question in the sense is, how did you feel when you were asked to become High Commissioner?
I was shocked. I have to be honest, and I want to use this opportunity to say thank you to the former Prime Minister of Barbados, Fernando Stewart, and to his government for giving me this honor. Honestly, it was something that I never would have imagined would have been given to what I would say is an everyday person. I had no political background, no political aspirations, no real political connections. I was just always a public servant or somebody who worked for the people of Barbados. And I presume it was my efforts in that regard, probably more specifically as chairman of the board of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Barbados. It is our largest public institution with a budget of $175 million per annum, that the government had confidence in me as I managed a number of crises there, that I would be able to add value to its diplomatic service.
Yeah, considering the High Commission in London is one of the, I think it's one of the top 2 missions in the whole global world. What preparation would you have had before you come to London?
Well, there were extensive briefings. I think one of the things that may have led to my being appointed here was I had prior knowledge of the jurisdiction of the country. I am honored to say I am Barbados's first UK-born High Commissioner. I think that has been important to me because I've been able to reassure our diaspora here that notwithstanding the fact that they're citizens by descent, that they're as valuable to Barbados as those who may have been born, bred, and grew up in Barbados. But I also worked prior to this at the Commonwealth Secretariat, so I had an understanding of the work of the Commonwealth, of its agencies, its operations, and I had the prior work experience in London, which meant I could come into the country and from the first day hit the ground running.
I think what we in the UK would say is, as one of the youngest High Commissioners, I believe Walton Ramsey was
Yes.
before you, is that you have the energy, because I think we're accustomed to being, have High Commissioners who are at the end of their careers and they're more of a diplomatic role. So I think in that case you brought some sort of energy and much more dynamism to the role.
Well, yes. I mean, this is one of the things that has also took me by surprise. The appointment at London is considered to be, as you've said, one of the pinnacle in the diplomatic service. When I came here, it was clear to me that this was not by any stretch of the imagination the end of my career. So I came here to perform. I looked for an opportunity to add value, and whereas my counterparts may have come here as a reward for years of service to Barbados and considerable service, for me, this was the opportunity to prove myself and to make sure I could leave a legacy for those who came after.
You've had many accomplishments over that 4 years.
Thank
But
you.
one that has stood out mostly, and one is which put Barbados on the map and yourself, is the Windrush. Can we deal with the Windrush before we move on to the other things? What brought you what thing that brought the success of the Windwatch? What are the attributes of yourself that brought that?
I think I recognized that there was a crisis, and what I guess made it fortuitous for Barbados was that I had picked up that this crisis was there some time ago. We had formally approached the UK government in 2016. We had raised the concern with them in a bilateral meeting. So it was on the record that Barbados had these concerns. However, we were given a reassurance that any concerns we had were possibly a reflection of bureaucratic hiccups, anomalies within the system, but that there was no systematic persecution or no denial of the rights of elderly Barbadians or other West Indians in the UK. Over time, we came to realize that that was not the situation, and we had to intervene. Because Barbados had been working on this, I felt a sense of obligation to see it through. But it was also important for me, as I said, as a UK-born High Commissioner, as someone whose parents met here. My mother came from India, my father from Barbados. The people who were persecuted through Windrush, and when I say persecuted, I'm talking about loss of job, loss of benefits, some people were detained, others would be deported. This could have been potentially my parents. These could have been my parents' friends. So I felt that I had a duty to my heritage, to our people, to make sure that they got the justice that they deserved.
It's not really public knowledge, but I found out in my research that you had already written letters to the Home Secretary, Barad, about...
We had signaled the problem, as I said, going back 2 years before. There was the dialogue. We had been meeting, and recently, and I'm talking about in 2017, this had been raised as a concern, but we kept getting a reassurance that there was nothing untoward, that it was being addressed. And it's only when the Guardian newspaper kept flagging situations of abuse of rights, denial of benefits, that I realized that there was a crisis here. More importantly, I got the information from the Migration Observatory at Oxford University that we weren't talking about tens or hundreds of people, but possibly thousands or tens of thousands. And at that time, I recognized we had a full-blown crisis, and I decided I needed to act, working with my fellow High Commissioners from the Caribbean, reaching out to parliamentarians to get their support, reaching out to civil society, particularly the charities that worked on race and immigration issues, the Runnymede Trust, the Joint Council for the Welfare of Immigrants, reaching out to the Church of England and other religious communities to try to build up that support to get this issue and this situation resolved.
One of the significant things that you left out there was the WhatsApp petition, because it was unusual to find so many people, especially Caribbean people, getting involved in something like that.
Well, this is correct. When we decided, a small group of us who were working together, that we needed to get this issue addressed. The opportunity that presented itself was the Commonwealth Heads of Governments, the Commonwealth Summit that was going to be held that was going to begin on the 19th of April. And what we did was to work together in the hope that it could be addressed by the time our prime ministers and foreign ministers got here. And a lot of effort was taken to coordinate a strategy which included media awareness, mobilization of our diaspora, as you mentioned, the parliamentary petition that got 100,000 signatures within 10 days, which was unprecedented. It was record-setting, which showed that there was considerable support behind this issue. And I think it caused the government to pay attention to something that was neglected for too long?
It had a lot of knowledge with it, because the only time the community had anything that were so involving with the CARICOM commissioners was the APD situation, and that was resolved around the last Commonwealth Conference.
And again, we recognize from that experience that having our heads involved in these campaigns was the most powerful resource that we could bring to bear, and we therefore coordinated it to ensure that if the need presented itself, that our heads would be there to speak on behalf of West Indians in Britain. And as you are aware, they did meet with the British Prime Minister, Theresa May. They had a sit down. We got an apology, a commitment that this matter would be given priority and resolved, and now the offer of compensation to those who have been affected.
I think we skirted around it, but the use of the media was phenomenal in that the first time I've ever been to a press conference to do an issue with the Caribbean government, that we had Russian television, Sky, BBC, and several different news networks, CNN, I think, they were all there telling this story. It suggested that because of Brexit and the way the UK government was dealing with this immigration problem, this might come on the exit of Brexit.
Well, yes, the European Union flagged their concern that the treatment of the Windrush generation could be seen as indicative of what could happen to European citizens post-Brexit. And they asked the government to show in its resolution of the Windrush situation that they could act with compassion and sensitivity and urgency on immigration matters. As you are aware, Brexit is this UK's top political and economic priority. So it did help that the Windrush issue overlapped with Brexit, which meant that it would have been given the attention that it deserved.
Just to touch on the Barbadian aspect of it, I think because of your articulation of the subject, do you think it had any influence on Martin Ford being pushed through to do the job, or just his natural ability?
I think it might be coincidental. I think they were obviously Martin Ford as the advisor to the Home Secretary on compensation. He's a Queen's Counsel, an eminent barrister. And I think that is what really stood out. I think they wanted someone from the Caribbean because we saw that they have appointed Guyanese, Kate Williams, who has Guyanese heritage, to be the advisor on lessons learned. I think they wanted to find people that the community could trust. Martin Ford as a Queen's Counsel, as an Oxford-trained barrister, as somebody who is accomplished in the area of compensation for injury, I think stands on his own record. But I did, and my colleagues felt reassured that this is somebody who came from the region and would be able to have some degree of empathy, but we respect his need to be objective on this matter.
A bit of the Barbadian profile was rather high because news channels started to reach out even to the National Council of Barbadian Associations, and I believe our chair, Norma Paris, did quite a few interviews themselves.
She did very good work, and I want to commend her for her service and that of the Barbadian associations on this topic.
And also, then we had the Windrush service, Westminster, and then we have the announcement of Windrush Day.
Yes.
Personally, how did you feel now after all that particular episode of your journey?
I would have to say, if I look back on all of the things that I've done here, it is the most significant. Our role as a mission is to be there to help people in need. And I don't think there was a greater need amongst the Barbadian and the Caribbean community than the issue of Windrush. Right. I commend the British government. My role is a diplomat. So I told people it is not to look for conflict, but to work towards resolution. And I have commended publicly the Prime Minister, the then Home Secretary, for the public apologies, for the commitments made. As you said, for the announcement of a Windrush Day. That Baroness Benjamin, who comes from Trinidad and originally, has been chairing a committee to see how they could erect a permanent monument for Windrush to commemorate the birth of multicultural Britain. And I know there are some people who want to diminish it and say that doesn't compensate for the injuries suffered. But in a sense, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of a journey, I think, of righting those wrongs and moving this country towards becoming reunited on matters of race, difference, and migration, which I have said doesn't look like it's been there to date. But I believe there will be, as a London or born person, a united kingdom or a united society within this kingdom. And I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Now, with all this high profile of the Barbados mission, let's talk about the work of the Barbados mission. Let's go right back. The work of the Barbados mission. What is the actual role of the Barbados mission? And do you think that you have been able to accomplish anything with the work that is meant to be doing?
Yes. I mean, missions abroad are there to represent the strategic interests of a country. A lot of the times, and while I was here, I read in newspapers abroad, at home, the question, what do diplomats do? People think they live in big houses, drive around big cars, go to receptions, go to events. And they do this. But I challenged myself. Before I came out to London, I said, I need, as a professional, as somebody who was mid-career, I can't simply put on a resume that I met the Queen, although that was iconic for me and memorable, but I needed to do more. And what I sought to do was to look at all of the areas in terms of diplomacy. And Windrush was a version of diplomacy, a more public form of diplomatic engagement, but diplomacy nonetheless. Our work in establishing bilateral agreements with countries like Rwanda or Cyprus, these were part of our diplomatic mission. But we have the consular work. In part, Windrush covers that as well. But reaching out to Barbadians in crisis, we have an economic concern. The UK remains Barbados' largest tourism market. Tourism is our biggest sector, and therefore it is important for me to work with the tourism team to make sure that we remain positive, that we remain in the public eye and in their consideration as a destination or as the premier destination in the Caribbean from the UK market. Our other commercial interests, we have a ships registry, which we are growing and which is based in the mission in London. We are looking to see how we can expand our trade in goods and especially our trade in financial services. Barbados is a financial service center, international one, and while we have done very well in North America, there are opportunities still in the United Kingdom. So looking back on the work that we have done in the different areas in terms of the growth of tourism has grown year on year by records in the last 3 or 4 years that I've been here. We have seen our ships registry grow in terms of registration. We have seen a diaspora that I feel feels closer to and better connected to its High Commissioner and mission. In terms of diplomacy, we've been able to resolve the Windrush crisis. So there are a number of things that I'm satisfied that we have accomplished. There are some things that would be left that my successor, I look forward to seeing them succeeding as I have here.
Apart from the Windrush, what are your other accomplishments?
I would say the next big one would have been our 50th anniversary celebrations for independence, our Golden Jubilee in 2016. I think that really allowed us to bring the work of the mission to a focus or crescendo. A small team, which involved both the mission staff and members of the diaspora, raised $1 million Barbados dollars, with which we were able to do a number of significant things. We were able to celebrate Sir Garfield Sobers' 80th birthday. The Right Excellency Garfield, as you know, is our only living national hero and deserves all the accolades, especially in this country, because of the cricket links and because of the time he spent here. He is revered here. We had outstanding events for him. We had outstanding events for our diaspora. We identified 50 persons who had given to this country above and beyond the call of duty. People in all spheres, business, in the arts, in sports, in entertainment, in local government, people across the spectrums who have Barbadian links and heritage. We showed how they have added value here. And last but by no means least, we were able to bring that together for a celebration, a gala event at the Savoy, which included the Royal Barbados Police Band, which Barbadians have a great nostalgia for, which have been recognized as an outstanding marching band in North America, in the UK, and where they performed at the Edinburgh Tattoo. They were there and really gave that touch of Barbados. For me, on top of that was my ability to do a publication on our father of independence, the Right Excellent Walter Barrow, which was my way of thanking him and his legacy for giving me the education and the opportunities that put me, I would say, in this position today.
Taking the mention of the amount of money that was spent on the celebrations, what was the input of the Barbados government?
That was all raised through sponsorship. The government had put some resources there, a modest amount because they were going through austerity. And so I was pleased that the diaspora was able to raise this money. It didn't come from the taxpayer. It didn't come from the treasury. We were able to raise it and to use it to celebrate Barbados in Britain. And that was very important.
I think when you listed the achievements of that year, you didn't mention Wilfred Wood at the Southwark Cathedral.
Thank you for reminding me, which I should do as a Southwark and an Anglican priest. We gave thanksgiving for what Barbados had accomplished. And as you rightly said, we had the distinguished presence of the Sir Wilfred Wood, a former retired bishop of Croydon in the Diocese of Southwark, the first black bishop in the Church of England. He was wonderfully, he gave the sermon in 1966 at the inaugural church service to celebrate Barbados' independence at Westminster Abbey. Barrow was at the service then. And at that time, he was a young curate, and he was able to reflect on the journey that Barbados made over its 50 years, was able to speak to the many positives and the many things we had achieved, but also able to provide some valuable inputs and guidance on what we must do as a society to make sure we retain high standards, good values, and always have our faith and our religion at the forefront of our actions.
Okay. Let's move forward. Let's move to this year, the elections in Barbados. The result, was that a shock to you?
The final result of the then government, the Democratic Labour Party, losing all of its seats, I think came to a shock to most people. I had got a strong sense from being in Barbados prior to that, from listening to ordinary Barbadians, from getting a sense from some of the polling data, that the government was going to be defeated. It was, I think, the consequence of a number of errors that the government may have made over time, in part to do with the difficult financial situation the country is also in. But I say to people, I've said then, and I say now, that the voice of the people is the voice of God. And once you believe in democracy, you have to subscribe to the outcome. When the Prime Minister Stewart then conceded that the night, I congratulated Prime Minister Motley, wish her and her new government well, which I feel is what we must do, because outside of the 4 weeks of campaigning around the general election, once the results are out, we give thanks for the stability of democracy and we support the government of the day.
Is there anything that you think that you could have done differently with hindsight whilst on the mission?
This is me personally.
Yes, you personally.
I think that there would have been the opportunity if I had had the experience that I took from Windrush to have avoided the reciprocal healthcare agreement which operated between Barbados and the United Kingdom. It was an agreement that the UK had with Barbados and 2 other Commonwealth countries where nationals from Barbados who got sick here and those nationals from this country who got sick in Barbados would be treated through the accident and emergency free of charge and would be given free health care to allow them to stabilize and return home. In 2016, the UK government signaled that it was going to terminate this agreement. I deferred to Barbados, to the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for guidance. I didn't get the feedback I needed. And what I should have done then, which I did with Windrush, was to trust my instincts, to know and determine what was in the interest of Barbados and act on it. But I didn't have the experience then, or maybe I was too deferential to Barbados and not fully understanding that as Barbados's envoy here, on matters here, I needed to let the buck stop with me and take the decisions that needed to be taken.
And it's a very important question I think we should be telling about Joshua Ferdinand, because there's still lots of Barbadian cricketers who are coming up to England and not having health care insurance. And let's talk about what you did with Joshua to get him back to Barbados, just quickly.
Well, we had, as you said, this young cricketer, talented young man who became critically ill in the United Kingdom. His bill was £50,000. His parents, of modest means but great faith, were trying to do the best. And I felt, I took it upon myself as High Commissioner, I took it upon myself as a Christian, I took it upon myself as an ordinary Bajan to say we had to do something. So what I tried to do was to mobilize the diaspora here, to mobilize resources in Barbados philanthropically to try to get him the support to pay the bills, try to get him the support to get back to Barbados, to try to get him the support when he returned to Barbados to get the health care that he needed. And luckily, because I was a former chairman of the board of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Barbados, I was able to mobilize that. Luckily, because I don't believe in taking no for an answer, I pushed and pushed in Barbados to get some resources there to meet the cost of his travel, to get someone to accompany him. And I need to thank the Queen Elizabeth Hospital because they did send a nurse. They did try to, through the physiotherapy department, provide support to him. But I realized at that point the importance not just of the tenacity to not take no as an answer, especially when you recognize there's something that must be done, but to also appreciate the importance of being able to have a reputation that people know when you are reaching out, it's with sincerity and it is trying to get what needs done accomplished.
Thank you. One of your catchphrases is always, I'm a servant of the people. What's next for Guy Hewitt?
I don't have any immediate plans. I want to take some time to have a moment to reflect on all of what has happened here. There are some other things that I was able or haven't had a chance to speak about in terms of being in the UK and our work. One of them was, as you alluded to, the Commonwealth Summit that was held this year. Barbados was able to play a small but I would say significant diplomatic role in trying to ensure that there was clear succession from Her Majesty the Queen, and as we have got confirmation, to the Prince of Wales, who will be the next head of the Commonwealth. I had reported to the government of Barbados, and I had spoken to a number of colleagues here and also within the Commonwealth, that the biggest threat to the Commonwealth was not to have that succession resolved. I was pleased that it happened. Not only is the Prince Charles the heir apparent to the throne here, he's the heir apparent to the throne for Barbados, because as you know, Her Majesty is the Queen of Barbados. That is one of her many titles. Okay. He would become not just the King of England or King of the United Kingdom, he would become the King of Barbados unless we go the route of Republic. So it was important for me to do that. But just to pick up also on your point of being a service to the people, while we talk about Windrush, while we talk about the work of the Commonwealth, while we talk about the 2016 celebrations, all which were significant, to me, it was the ability to be there for everyone, for anyone that mattered. About 6 weeks ago, a Sunday afternoon, I got a call. We had a young Barbadian couple. They were on their honeymoon in Barcelona. Sunday afternoon, they were having lunch together and they got robbed. They lost their travel documents. It was for them catastrophic. Without a passport, they couldn't join the ship. Without a passport, they couldn't move. They were being advised that the honeymoon would come to an end. Again, with some tenacity and great clarity, that a couple starting out on their life together could not start on such a note. I reached out to the British High Commissioner in Barbados, and I thank her for her assistance, to the British Consul General in Barcelona. I thank him for his assistance. And between the mission at London, our colleagues in Barcelona, our colleagues in Brussels and the Barbados Embassy in Belgium, the British High Commissioner in London and the British Consulate in Barcelona, we were able to get this young couple emergency travel documents in less than 24 hours. They joined their cruise. They had a fabulous honeymoon. They came and saw me at the mission and thanked me, and I said to them, they were, I think, a reflection of what I feel the job is. Regardless of what happens, we don't lose sight that we are here for everyday Barbadians. And when I've ever, whether it's Joshua Ferdinand or this couple or others who have been in distress, that has been for me the most satisfying thing, being able to reassure them and their parents in Barbados that I am here, the mission is here, they are not on their own.
I'm not sure that you answered the question. What is the next step for you?
So for me the next step is to take a moment to reflect on what I have accomplished over the last 4 years. I look forward to going back. One of the reasons, or the reason for my returning to Barbados, not being willing to serve any longer, has been my family has been split between Barbados and the United Kingdom. I need to get back to my family. We need to be back together under one roof, living and existing in the unity that God designed and we signed up to. The last 4 years have been difficult, and I look forward to us just being together as a family. Career-wise, I'm looking at a number of opportunities, the possibility of going into full-time ministry, the possibility of serving Barbados in other ways. When I think back on it, none of the jobs I had recently did I actively seek. They found me. I believe that the hand of providence, that in my context, God leads my life, and I'm going back to Barbados and quietly make myself available to God pointing me in the next direction that He wants for me. And I always say, wherever He leads, I will follow.
There's a number of things that we were unable to touch on, including the trip to Oxford and stuff like that. But recently you undertook a trip to Belfast. And I felt that was a very significant trip because of our association with Ireland, both as a legacy and heritage stuff. Just quickly tell us your reflections on that visit.
Last Sunday, we went to Belfast for an inaugural emancipation service. And it was significant to me on two levels. One, as High Commissioner, I had not visited Northern Ireland, which falls under my remit as High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. But equally important was that in our discussion about Windrush, we kept talking about the situation that persons who came here confronted immense hostility and persevered. But one of the things that they encountered were these signs that said, no Irish, no blacks, no dogs. Immense hostility our people encountered when they came here after the war to give their life and service to this country. And for me, going to Ireland was an opportunity to say to them, because the Irish had been sent out to the Caribbean as indentured servants and had been equally persecuted and oppressed as a colonized people, that we understand the affinities that we share because of a common experience of colonization. And going to Ireland was an opportunity for me to embrace Northern Ireland as part of my jurisdiction, but Ireland in general as a country that had come through a similar colonial experience as we have in the Caribbean, as we have in Barbados, and like us, have worked hard to put it behind them and are people that are growing and prospering. I had a personal interest as well because I do have a slight passion for Guinness, and I was pleased to be able to go over there because people say you can't get a good Guinness unless you get it in Ireland.
So you had several pints of Guinness at various
I had
locations.
a few of them. I felt it was important to sample what was on offer.
Is there any discerning difference in the taste of the Guinness?
I have to say, as I was advised and conducted my own investigation, that Guinness in fact does taste better in Ireland.
Okay. High Commissioner, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to chronicle your journey.
Thank you, Tyrone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
There you have it. Outgoing High Commissioner to Barbados, His Excellency Guy Hewitt. Thank you.